The first teaser trailer for Disney Snow White came out a few weeks ago, and it's crossed an unfortunate milestone for Disney in that it hit over 1 million dislikes on YouTube on the official Walt Disney Studios YouTube channel. That's compared to an 84,000 likes. So you can see that like to dislike ratio is pretty abysmal, all things considered. And I think there's multiple factors as to why this particular movie is so overwhelmingly disliked. But one thing is for sure, a lot of the media allies for Disney are not happy with a lot of people voicing their displeasure in this. And I will get more into it in a little bit of why I think this movie is probably going to be a colossal failure for Disney. But first, let's look at what they're saying about it right now. This is coming from Dexerto, and there's multiple outlets that I saw trying to defend this movie, but this is one I just decided to pull up. Rachel Zegler's Snow White live action trailer has 1,200% more dislikes than likes. It's been a year since Rachel Zegler drama, but backlash is still working overtime as the dislikes on the teaser trailer for her live action Snow White outweigh the likes by a whopping 1,200%. I just showed you that. In case you were taking a social media break last year, Zegler became a target of undue hate. Well, that's debatable whether the backlash is deserved or not. After a clip of a 2022 interview went viral showing the star describing some of the narrative points they'll be changing in Disney's live-action Snow White remake, while saying it's no longer 1937. And the whole "it's no longer 1937" is basically saying, oh, well, it's a very dated movie, and she's talking about the original one, and we didn't like the story in the original one, so we're changing it and trying to update it for modern audiences. And that obviously invites the question, well, if you don't like the original story and you're trying to change it, then why are you even bothering to remake it to begin with? Because presumably you're going to remake something because you like the original one and you want to kind of bring it into the new era. But new era doesn't mean changing the story. It means maybe basically like updating some of the stuff. And if you're on board with the idea of these live action remakes, I think you would probably agree that they should be as faithful to the story as possible, because otherwise just make something completely different. But a lot of the people surrounding this new remake are of the mindset like, well, we just like the IP and it's a profitable IP, so we're just going to try to capitalize on the name recognition alone because Disney is completely void of a lot of creativity right now. The only movies that they have doing well are ones where they're trying to actually do something a little bit different. When it comes to stuff like this, not so much right now. What followed was a torrent of vitriol from old dramas being dragged up to the out of context clips circulating and threats to boycott our movie. Zegler and her co-stars, as well as many fans, have since hit back at the trolls. And that's another thing why this movie is getting heavily ratioed on YouTube, because you don't attack the fans. When fans are saying that they don't like what you're doing with this, or they don't think they should be remaking it, or don't change the story, this is a better response to that. Listen, we understand that you really love the original movie, and us working on it love the original movie too. Maybe there was a poor choice of words saying that we need to change it or it was outdated, but we're trying to make something that we think fans of the original one will like, as well as new audiences. So maybe if you gave it a chance and just come out and see the movie when it comes out, you might be pleasantly surprised with this one, because we're not trying to make anything that people won't like. We're trying to make something that the audiences will like. That's a statement that they should be making, but instead they resort to attacking fans. And back in the day, a lot of celebrities would actually have PR people who would basically carefully, I'm not saying script, but probably inform them and advise them on what they say when they're in the public. So the only time you actually saw celebrities is when they're actually giving interviews and stuff like that, and they were just giving their talking points. And that's what a lot of them should be doing nowadays. A lot of the older celebrities, the smarter ones, they kind of do that. They use their personal Twitter accounts and stuff to just promote their projects and just basically stick to the lines. But you get the younger celebrities like Rachel Zegler here, who are still of the mindset where this is my own personal social media account, so I can just say whatever I want on there. And that's not really the smart move, because then they have a tendency, if you just get upset by something and just kind of mouth off, well, there you might have actually tanked a multi-$100 million movie, because now people are not going to want to see it just because you're in it. But as we saw with the live action Little Mermaid, it appears the upcoming Snow White, in which Zegler stars as the titular princess, is getting the review bomb treatment. I wouldn't call people disliking the trailer the review bomb treatment. It's more people just using the feature of YouTube for its intended purpose. People didn't like the trailer, so they're saying they didn't like the trailer. It just so happens that overwhelming majority of the people who saw the trailer didn't like it. Last month, the first teaser trailer for the Disney remake landed, and as of September 2nd, it's received 1.1 million thumbs down, a 1,200% increase from its 84,000 likes. The video itself shows the segments of Zegler Snow White with the CGI dwarfs. That's another thing people don't like, is the CGI dwarfs. They're saying they should have brought in real actors to play the dwarfs instead of just actually having CGI characters. Some dwarf actors were upset by the idea of that because they were saying, like, well, there's not a whole lot of parts for us to begin with. This was an opportunity for 7 dwarf actors to actually get a role, and Disney decided to be like, nope, we're just going to make them CGI characters instead of actually giving real dwarf actors a role in their movie. So that didn't really gain them goodwill amongst it either. But there's just a lot going against this movie. And I think, like I said, Rachel Zegler and the response she's made, as well as the response of some of the people working on this movie making, is probably hurting its at the box office or its box office potential, and probably accounting for why the like to dislike is so bad. But I also think it comes down to just people not in the mood to watch another soulless cash grab, which is what this pretty much strikes a lot of people as. It just seems like something that people are trying to produce because Disney is completely void of any creativity. So they're like, well, we got the license to this IP, so let's just make a movie about this. And I don't think it's going to work. We saw last summer when The Little Mermaid came out, there was some controversy around it, but it wasn't as much because at least star Halle Bailey wasn't attacking people personally, or at least not in the lead up to it. Some of the people trying to defend it were basically just using the tired racist, sexist arguments, and no one really buys that anymore. So I don't think that really has any impact on it whatsoever. This movie just didn't look good. It just looked like an inferior version of the original Little Mermaid movie. But opening weekend came around and it did pretty good on opening weekend, $95 million. So people are saying, like, oh, it looks like this movie's going to succeed. With the budget for it, it needed to make probably around $700-800 million in order for it to be successful. So nearly 100 million during the opening weekend. People were thinking, like, oh, that's probably going to be good. And then we saw it just kind of dropped off a cliff, and it only made around $570 million globally. So not enough to actually be profitable. I'm thinking we're going to see something similar when it comes to this upcoming Snow White remake. I think we're going to see some people eager to defend it show up to support it during that opening weekend. I just don't think it's going to be a huge amount. And it does have a huge bar to clear in order for it to be profitable. We saw from some tax filings in the UK and other things like that the movie's budget is probably around the $340 million mark. So this headline's a little bit misleading, saying it needs to gross $340 million. That's not necessarily means it has to make that at the global box office. It means it needs to make that net as opposed to gross. So for that, since the studio only gets a certain percentage of the box office gross, that means the movie probably needs to make closer to $800-900 million at a minimum in order for Disney to actually see any profit on it. And just judging by the looks of it, it's probably not going to happen because, like I showed you when it came to The Little Mermaid, that didn't come anywhere close to that. And that was one that didn't have nearly as much heat surrounding it. In fact, it got so bad for this Snow White movie that's the large reason why they delayed it for a year, because I think they were hoping that a lot of that heat surrounding Rachel Zegler would have died off between then, or last March is when it was supposed to happen, and it's supposed to come out now in this upcoming March. So maybe they were thinking, like, okay, we delay it for a year, a lot of this pressure will die down, and then people will come and see it. And it's looking like that's not the case because this trailer came out. It was heavily disliked. So I'm thinking this movie is going to be a huge failure for Disney. And the question is, are they going to learn their lesson from this? Because I don't think they're going to not do any live action remakes. So that's kind of out of the question. But one thing they can do is just change how they handle criticism. When they're getting criticized, do what I said. Just try to be a little bit more empathetic, even if you don't think the people criticizing you are a large segment of your audience and don't deserve it. Try to treat everyone as if they're a paying customer, because everyone is potentially a paying customer. If you try to act like you hear the complaints and you understand them and try to address it in that way, I think you're going to get a better results. We've seen that in the past with some movies. Sonic is kind of on mine because the trailer for the third movie just came out. Because when the first trailer for Sonic came out, a lot of people didn't like the style of the character or the design. That's the word I was looking for, of Sonic. And instead of attacking the fans who didn't like it, the director's like, okay, yeah, we get it. We understand you don't like it. We'll change it for the final movie. And as a result, the movie was a huge success and people liked the new design better. So I think that goes a long way, just to have a little empathy towards your audience as opposed to try to attack them, which is what they did with this movie. And right now, if they wanted to actually try to change course and be empathetic towards the audience, I think that's probably too little too late. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think this is going to be just a huge flop for them? Or do you think there is the potential that this could succeed and become a billion-dollar movie? Comment below. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share the video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.